Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Total Alignment Charitable's financial literacy programming. My name is Mina and in Black. I am one of the co-executive directors here at Total Alignment Charitable. I'm going to go ahead and let my co-executive director, Christina, introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Massole. I'm also a co-executive director, and we're back another week during Financial Literacy Month in April. Hopefully, you're enjoying.
Awesome, awesome. So today we are going to talk about something that's actually very, very important and very, very important to what's happening in the world across the globe. Today we're talking about surviving and thriving, smart strategies for today's economy. Now, you may have noticed there's a lot going on, and with everything that's going on, it can be a bit much for you to try to get a handle on how to proceed with your money management. And what we want to talk to you a little bit about is essentially how to think about money management, how to think about money management in a difficult economy, right? So, as I mentioned, I'm Mina Black. This is Total Alignment Charitable. One of the things we do here at Total Alignment Charitable is we provide free financial plans for individuals that are experiencing some type of hardship. We also provide free personal finance workshops. We partner with organizations serving particular communities, whether it is domestic violence survivors, those that have been human trafficked, or those facing mental health challenges. We partner with organizations serving the unhoused to help them understand the best way to get themselves uh, the right foot, as well as also get themselves ready for the next phase, whatever the next phase may be. And as I mentioned, today we are going to be talking about how to survive in an economy that may not necessarily be the most stable. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you may or may not know when it comes to economic, how the economy works. Let's start with two things: leading and lagging indicators. You may or may not have heard those two terms, but I can tell you that if you've never heard of it, heard of either term, it is very important for you to familiarize yourself with both of those terms because they really give you insight into how the economy is working and how the rest of the population also is viewing how the economy is working. So let's start with leading indicators. Leading indicators are essentially indicators that allow us to give us insight into what's going to happen within the next 9 to 12 months of the economy. Some examples of some leading indicators are consumer confidence index, and essentially the perception that we, consumers, have about the economy and how we think the economy is doing. So you may have heard, maybe you've been sitting there listening to the business news, or you read a business article, and you may have seen consumer confidence index, or you may have seen leading indicator mentioned, and you weren't quite clear on what either one of those terms means. It really is a way for us to see how things are predicted to go within the next 9 to 12 months. The other term you may have heard is called the lagging indicator. Now, I mentioned the consumer confidence index for the leading indicator. It's not the only leading indicator. There are actually a couple of other leading indicators that gives insight, like the consumer manufacturers index, the consumer purchasing, the purchaser manufacturing index. I always want to confuse those two, but just keep that in mind that those two leading indicators give us insight into what's coming within the next 9 to 12 months. That being said, the lagging indicator, you may have guessed, is literally essentially it's almost the hindsight. Okay, what happened and what happened tell us about the economy. So an example of a lagging indicator is, I'm sure you probably guessed it, it's unemployment numbers. Unemployment numbers can give us insight into some of the things that unfortunately have happened and why they happened. So if you're seeing some things in the economy, maybe you're seeing people getting laid off, right? People losing their jobs, people having a hard time finding work. You may see that and you may say to yourself, huh, I just saw the unemployment numbers come out. I just saw the unemployment report, and the unemployment numbers report say that things are fine, right? But when you look around in your everyday and you hear stories, you may say, well, what that report says and what I see is not aligning. And that's why, because that is a lagging indicator. So we won't know the true numbers for several months in terms of the true implications of people being laid off for several months, because again, it's a lagging indicator. Now, there are a couple of other things that you need to make sure that you're aware of. So, to understand the current economy. So, for example, you probably have heard the term inflation, right? You may see that unfortunately, there's some things that are happening when it comes to inflation, meaning that the price of goods is going up. Unfortunately, it can and will continue to go up. And you may see that in things. You may hear a report like, "Oh, you know what? car sales are going up. Excuse me, not car sales, but the car prices are going up. You may see that in the news. You may hear that, like, you can expect car prices going up. You may see that there's an economic slowdown. Just today, a report came out that within the next 6 to 12 months, there will be an economic slowdown, not just in the United States where we are, but globally because of the tariff and the trade war, right? So you may hear these terms and you may be unclear about how these terms impact your day to day, but they do impact your day to day, and there are things you should may be aware of. You may be familiar with the mortgage rates and how you may not know how the mortgage rate, the increase or decrease in mortgage rates impacts your daily life. But be mindful that it does all intersect and it does all act to essentially help form opinions and um, help us determine how to essentially manage our daily lives, right? You may see that there may be some obviously interest rates issues within the next few months, right? There's a lot of back and forth going on regarding whether interest rates need to be cut or whether interest rates need to be stay the same. So if you see things like that, know that it's all tied together. Know that all of it is really kind of indicative of the challenges or the uncertainty in an economy that's not necessarily going up, and the economy may be headed toward a downward turn. So I think when it comes to economic indicators and then, how the economy is progressing, one of the things that we do have to think about is how we can actually manage our day-to-day finances, specifically cash flow. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Christina, to give you a little insight into how you can actually manage your cash flow and some strategies you can use to manage your cash flow during a down market.
Yeah, thank you, Mina, for laying the groundwork and providing some basic economics for everybody to gain an understanding. And so just a reminder what we're talking about. We're talking about financial tips that you can use to navigate this current landscape or climate that we're facing, right? Especially people are wondering, okay, how do I stay financially secure right now when everything seems so uncertain? So we're going to give you some strategies. And one of them is something that is termed cash flow triage, right? And when you think about triage, what do you think of? When you go to the hospital and think about medical professionals and they triage patients, right? And that's a process by which they actually will determine the priority, right? Or the level of urgency of which the needs for each of those patients are, right? And so when you're looking at your cash flow and your budget and you want to triage these things, you're actually looking at your expenses and you're saying, you know what? Let me take a really good deep dive and see what are my priorities. Let me triage some of these areas and see what's urgent for me to take a look at, right? Sometimes we don't realize that there is fat that can always be trimmed, right? Sometimes the meat that comes, you go to the store, you buy meat, and sometimes there's fat on the meat, especially if you don't get the butcher to clean it up and you're, hey, I'm just gonna buy the meat myself and I'm going to clean it myself. You have to trim the fat. And so in these times of uncertainty, people are looking to have liquidity and have some type of cash and really looking to see, okay, where can I potentially make cuts? And the only way that you can see where you can make cuts is if you track what you're actually doing. If you're not tracking what you're doing, you can literally, especially in the world of credit cards, everyone swipes. It's so, now we tap. And it's just so comfortable to tap, right? You know, I went to Whole Foods earlier today and it's just tap, okay? I had to go to the post office, just tap. And I already spent money that I didn't think I was going to spend today, but I was near locations. I had to run some errands and do things. But this is everyday expenses. Now, could I trim buying groceries? No, of course not. But can I trim, which I did trim sometime last year, my Audible subscription? I had so many Audible books downloaded that I had not yet listened to. So I said, listen, I already have a stack of books that will last me all these free credits I had. I just downloaded all these books and then I canceled the membership. Now, I like Audible. When I'm ready to rejoin, I will rejoin, accrue my credits, and that's going to be my strategy, right? because I'm one of those people that I love to read I like to read books and write in the margins and things like that. So, but certain things I want to hear on audio. But that was an opportunity for me to save a good amount of money that I could buy a pair of shoes with, right? For the year, essentially. There's other things. I can trim going out to eat, right? Many of us can. People spend so much in food that it's not even funny, and entertainment. And so maybe that's an area where you can trim some fat. So anything that's non-essential. Well, those are the first areas where you want to go to actually cut. If you are in love with retail therapy, I'm sorry, you gotta find another solution. So if you're facing emotional distress and you get a high off of going and open up packages, and someone told me, like, I just love when packages come and I just get to open them up. Okay, order some 99-cent packages and you can still get that feeling of euphoria when the packages come and you're opening it up, like, Five Below. They have a store, Five Below, but look at things that are $5 and below. Don't necessarily buy the big ticket items. And what I'm not saying you spend $1,000 in $5 items. This is not what we're saying at all. But you still have that need that has to be met, but you want to reduce what you are spending, right? So look at that when you're triaging, you're looking at your cash flow. Remember, your cash flow is money coming in as well as money going out. For the most part, in these times, employers are not necessarily giving people raises in economies like this, right? Which means that the prices are going up and your income is remaining flat, right? So you literally have to figure things out, just like these companies, right? Their expenses are starting to go up with tariffs and things like that. And then what do companies do? Think of it that way. If you want to say, okay, well, what should I do? Think of yourself as your own company. Companies, the first thing that they do when costs go up for them, they look at their income statement and they go to the expenses. And the highest thing generally on that income statement is salary and benefits. And they start cutting employees, right? Because they can quickly trim the fat. So you want to do the same thing on your personal cash flow or budget and look to see, okay, what areas can I actually trim? And now when you have that pocket of money now that's not being directed to those areas, you can then redirect that money and put it into your emergency fund. You can put it into a high yield savings account, right? And you can see how your money's actually growing even in times of uncertainty. So, Jay-Z has a line in one of his songs, he'd rather tighten his belt before he asks for help. You know? Meaning he's going to trim the fat, right? On his expenses before he reaches out to people to say, hey, can you help me financially? Right? So think of that also. So think of 3 things that you can cut and 3 areas where you can actually save money by cutting. So essentially, you're going to cut these areas, and then that money is going to move into your savings. But you want to be tracking your stuff. And how often do you want to track? So I'm glad you asked. You want to track at this point in these uncertain times every day. Honestly, right now, every day. Because we're in such a time where we're just tapping and swiping, everything comes at us so fast, so quickly. So literally look and see on your credit card statements, oh, what did I spend? What did I spend throughout the day? And you could do a look back. So when I say every day, like you could do it tomorrow and look at what you spent for today. Today's Thursday. You can look on Friday and look back and see what you spent for the previous day. And essentially, the results will be when you're monitoring and looking at those things, you can say, okay, wow, on a weekly basis, this is what I'm spending on coffee. I take a walk every day, I pick up my coffee, and I don't drink coffee, by the way, but I'm using this as an example, but maybe I'm spending $8 a day in coffee. And I don't really like the coffee. I'm just doing the experience because my coworkers are going out. Hey, you can bring your free tea from inside the office that they give you. Just bring it outside with you when you guys go for your walk. A way for you to reduce your expenses. So in this climate, look at it daily, and then you want to look at your expenses quarterly, and you also want to look at your things annually. But that's your homework daily right now in uncertainty because you're looking to see where can I trim the fat. And I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Mina, at the moment.
Thank you, thank you. So you now that you've trimmed the fat, one of the things you really want to you may want to think about is, okay, are there other essentially inflation-proof cost cutting hacks that I can implement to supplement some of the trimming that I'm doing as well? And we want to give you kind of some real world tactical strategies that you can actually use today to essentially protect yourself and prepare yourself for any downward spiral of the economy. So let's start with one of the main things you may want to do one of our biggest expenses, aside from housing, is food, believe it or not. So when it comes to food, for some people, it can be a big expense because we eat out a lot, right? We don't cook at home. It's so easy to, as Christina says, to pick up our phone and tap and order from one of the companies the delivery companies. It's so easy to do that. Then, unfortunately, at the end of the month, when you look at your bills and how much you spend at one particular restaurant or through one particular meal delivery app, you may have spent more than you intended to. So, what a few things that you may want to consider doing when it comes to cost cutting, when it comes to food, one of the biggest expenses is consider batch cooking at least once a week. And if you're able to do so and batch cook, this is something actually growing up, my mom did quite a bit. Every Saturday morning, she would actually spend time cooking um, for the upcoming week, right? And for the meals that we eat right away, she'd go ahead and put them in the fridge. And then for the ones that things that we didn't need until much later, you could freeze a portion. So some of the things that can be really helpful is going ahead and doing a batch cooking. Now, when it comes to what that does, though, it kind of locks in today's lower prices, meaning that when you're able to batch cook, you can literally batch cook for a month or however long you need to, and save on tomorrow's prices today. So it's a great way to also to have food that's also readily accessible and always at your fingertips, so that you won't be tempted to tap and order food, right? So meal planning is a great way for you to use that strategy, right? By batch cooking and meal plan. But another thing that I think most people don't realize or they haven't implemented well is the buying in bulk. Now, there are a lot of places like Costco, like Sam's Club, like BJ's, where you can actually go and buy things in bulk, and it'll allow you to essentially prepare for the long haul and prepare for the long term. So if you can, do your best to become a member at any of these clubs, and sometimes the discounts you get is not just on the shop itself, meaning the store itself. They give you other other types of discounts. So, for example, if you're a Costco member, you actually get discounts on like some of the travel, some rental cars, and all these other things, right? So consider buying in bulk as part of your strategy. One tip that I want to share with everyone when it comes to meals is something that I think we use that I think can be really helpful, which is if you can. This is something that I think is interesting. I saw it on TikTok a while back, and I thought it was such a brilliant strategy, which is in the video, the young lady, she was single, and she did this. She would actually order from a catering company, and she would actually essentially go ahead and order for the catering company and take the meals from the catering company. So she would order, let's say, if you've ever ordered from a catering company, you know that they send you things. They'll send you things. They cook in large batches, so they cook enough for a large group of people. So what she would do is she would take that order, or whatever that order is that she placed through the catering company, which more often than not, was enough for like 5 to 10 people or more, right? She would take that food and she would actually reorganize it so that they're in like small little containers, and she would label it, and that would allow her, she would freeze what she wanted to eat later, and she would essentially put the rest in her fridge that she could eat today. That saved her so much money. So much money. I thought it was such a brilliant way to save on dining out, and it's good for people that are either professionals, that are family, that have families that just don't always have the time to sit and cook. Because let's be honest, sitting and cooking, we all like to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to make a 15-minute meal, but be honest with yourself, it often lasts longer than that. So if you don't have the time, then consider using that strategy of ordering from a catering company. There are a couple of companies that literally they have a list of catering companies that you can order from, and they'll just come deliver the food the same way that you would tap to order from the meal delivery place. This is a great way for you to plan for the rest of your month, for the rest of the month, and plan your meals out for the rest of the month. So that's a strategy you can use for meals. Now, in the next category, I would say that um, as far as kind of protecting yourself and inflation proof and some cutting hacks is installing smart power strips and LED bulbs, unplug energy vampires. One of the things that we have in our home is we do use the smart bulbs quite a bit. They're connected to Alexa, so that our lights are essentially you can change the colors, and you can turn off the lights and everything through the Alexa app. But these things can actually help essentially, they can help you essentially slash your monthly energy bills, regardless of whatever hikes that may come into play. So do your best to see if you can install some smart power strips and LED bulbs throughout the house. Next, transportation. How do you protect yourself in the downward market for transportation? Well, you know what? Car sharing is a great way to do so, right? Biking, right? Or bundling errands. If you know that you have a bunch of meetings, or you have a bunch of errands that you need to run, it's always a good idea to try to bundle them and essentially do them back to back. For me, for example, when I have meetings, I try to schedule my meetings, especially if it's the meetings are lunch meetings. I try to schedule my lunch meetings or coffee chats or whatever, back to back on the same day. That way, it allows me the opportunity to kind of just get everything done in one shake, right? So if you can, go ahead and try to bundle your errands and bundle some of your meetings, and bundle some of the things that require a lot of transportation as much as possible. This is a great way for you to save on fuel, save on maintenance, right? Which can unfortunately can increase, right? And it kind of helps you shield you from gas prices. Obviously, if you live in a major city like we do, like New York City, you know, one of the best ways to get around is through the subway system, right? So if your city or wherever you live has access to public transportation, it is absolutely imperative that you take advantage of it and try to do yourself a favor and save on gas. In addition to um, the public transportation, walking can be a great way. Walking and bike riding, right? Here in New York, um, uh, bike rides are a great way, and bike shares are, with some of the bigger companies, are how some people get around through the city, and they're a great way for people to save money, and also it's better for the economy, right? So that will take care of transportation. Now let's talk about something that Christina mentioned, which is subscriptions. Subscriptions. Um, I think one of the things that people don't realize is that we often have all these subscriptions that we don't audit, and you know, we don't rotate our subscriptions. We don't rotate the streaming services. I want you to do me a favor. When you have time, go through the streaming services that you pay for. If you have a lot of them, ask yourself, when was the last time you used all of them? When was the last time you used three of them, right? Because what you'll find is that companies count on you signing up for a subscription and not using it, and not essentially and forgetting about it. So if you do have these subscriptions, one thing you may want to consider is auditing and rotating. For example, the streaming services, or using one of the apps that are out there, one of the personal finance apps that are out there, using those personal finance apps that will allow you to essentially review all the subscriptions you have that are tied to your bank accounts. And some of the apps that are out there will actually cancel the subscription for you, right? So you don't have to do anything other than say, click cancel, right? Click cancel, and they'll go ahead and handle the cancellation for you. So just something to think about when it comes to kind of prevent inflation proofing your your finances for the next go around. That being said, I want to talk real quick about something that I think most of us overlook, which is the DIY home repairs and minor repairs at our home. It's so easy to have an issue and then just call a vendor, call somebody to come to fix it for you. I think there's something to be said about learning how to do some of this stuff yourself. I remember years ago, Home Depot is a great place for you to actually go and take some of these DIY classes to learn how to fix things around the house, fix things around your home yourself. So it's a great way to save money. I'm not saying go in and get a sledgehammer and start taking down walls if that's not your expertise, right? However, they do have some amazing classes and amazing sessions that will teach you some kind of basic DIY repairs that you can do around the house to keep things going without having to come out of pocket a whole lot of money. So those are a couple of things that I think you may want to consider doing and consider when it comes to protecting yourself and kind of protecting yourself and making sure that you use community resources like food pantries and utility relief programs to help essentially inflation proof yourself from the upcoming economic downturn. And I'm going to turn it over to Christina, who's going to talk a little bit about emergency fund basics.
Thank you, Mina. So a lot has been said. Hopefully everybody is taking notes. And not only taking notes, those notes have to be executed on. You have to apply it to real life. And so we talked a bit about trimming the fat in terms of expenses, and a good place where you can put your savings, if it's not going into your high yield savings account, is into your emergency fund, right? And your emergency fund should be parked also into a high yield savings account anyway. But what is an emergency fund or a spare tire fund? And this is exactly what it says. It is in case everything hits the fan, in case something blows up, in case something happens, right? Because let's face it, every year there's going to be something, there's a curveball that comes for everybody. Expenses that were unexpected, situations that were unexpected, family dynamics that were unexpected. And a lot of times, I mean, we're all interdependent on each other, and maybe it is something that didn't directly happen to you, but it's something that directly impacts you. And now you have to put out some expenses, right? So real talk, there's some family members who someone passes away in the family and they didn't have life insurance, and now someone has to come, several people, right? Crowdfunding for the funeral for a family member. This is really happens. We see it online, people doing GoFundMe accounts and all kinds of things. And so it's always good. So those to just have some money that's a bit tucked away for just things that come up. So what does that actually look like? The general rule of thumb is you want 3 to 6 months of your expenses, not the non-essential expenses. These are not the theater shows, okay? Not the Ulta Beauty $300 purchases on makeup and lip gloss and all the other fascinating things that are out there. Not the golf clubs, not the airline tickets. This is real life. Okay, what is it going to take for you to live? Your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, your food, right? So things that are essential, right? Remember during COVID, they talked about essential workers and those people who were on the front line. These are your frontline expenses, essential expenses. You need them. So you want to have at least 3 to 6 months of this. Now that's a minimum. There's some people, depending on the type of jobs that they have, the jobs are very difficult to come by, and therefore their emergency fund or spare tire fund is larger than 3 to 6 months. Some people stock away 12 months of living expenses, right? Some people stock away 2 years worth, right? So it's what you can afford, right? So let's just start with the basics, right? Let's say you're working up to get to your 3 months. We already talked about the first step. You're going to track, right? You're going to measure what's going on. You're going to track. You're going to cut. You're going to trim. So right now we're doing arts and crafts. Remember that from way back in elementary school? Take out your oak tag paper or your construction paper We did some cuts on the paper. We made some cuts, right? Now we're going to take those pieces of paper that we cut and we're going to put them into different buckets. Those buckets are different, right? Savings, emergency fund, right? And it's going to keep growing for us, right? And so essentially, if you're trying to get to that 1 month, the fastest way for you to get there is generally cutting out certain things. That's the fastest way. The next fastest way is micro saving tactics. So for instance, generally they have all of these like apps and things like that, investing apps where you can like round up your spare change when you're shopping for essential items, everyone. We're talking about living right now in the current economic landscape, right? And giving you strategies to actually deploy. We're military operatives right now, guys. We're on the front line and we need strategies. We need to deploy our troops with practical strategies to stay financially secure at this point in time. So like Acorns or different apps that allow you to round up your spare change and put it into an investing account. Now that's a good use of your money. Not standing in line and buying the impulse purchases. That's not a good use of your money. So these are some ways that we can build up our emergency funds. A side hustle, everybody. It is time for the side hustles to proliferate the economy right now, right? Everybody's multifaceted and we have multiple gifts and talents. There is something else that you can do to bring in extra income. It's just that we take those things for granted often and we're not being paid for it, right? Whatever that pay may be, guess what? It's more than zero, okay? And so those are ways that you can actually earn some extra money to put into your emergency fund. Where should this money be? This money should not be under the mattress. It should not be inside of your house, in your top left drawer, or in your shoebox, inside of a sock, wound up. This is real life. These are real examples of things that we see. If you are going to keep cash at home, everyone should have some cash at home. You're going to put it in a fireproof and waterproof safe to have that at your disposal. But you want to have your emergency fund money working for you. So you want to put it in a high yield savings account. And some of these are offering 3.8%, 4%, 5%, changes all the time based on the interest rate movements, but we want you to do that. Now, if you want some other sources of income, some people are working multiple jobs also. Some people have more than one W-2 employment type of job that they may work part-time on weekends or in the evenings and things like that to bring in additional income. So these are ways that, especially if you're young, there's no reason not to you make hay in the sun. There's a saying that says make hay in the sun, meaning that make the hay, make the money while times are good, not when it's raining, when you're sick or when we get older, but making the hay in the sun. And I like that expression because it's like, okay, while we're still young and we have the energy, we have the strength, we can get out there and hustle. Hustle, that's a word for everyone. Hustle. Not enough people hustle. So there's two things you want to take away, more than two things. You're going to take the notes, but you're going to execute on the notes. And then we're hustling in this time of uncertainty. We're hustling and not being afraid because there's still opportunities out here. And so these are some things that we wanted to share. And I'm going to turn it back to Mina.
Thank you, thank you. Christina has brought up a few really great points regarding hustling, especially when things aren't going that way and how to thrive in a bad economy, right? How to thrive in today's economy. I want to share a few things that you can do to boost your income and also upskill a little bit. As she mentioned, hustling, specifically, she mentioned the gig, doing gig work. A few years ago, the gig economy was all the rage. Everybody was, there were articles, apparent articles about how uh, U.S. Um, the U.S. economy was essentially uh, being propped up by the gig economy because everybody was doing gigs left, right, and center. And that's still the case, meaning that there are a lot of people that are still doing gigs, and doing a gig here and there are can be a great way for you to supplement your income, whatever income that you may have. So, if you have not done so, micro gigs and the task apps that are out there, whether it's TaskRabbit, DoorDash, Instacart, Rover, these are all apps that allow you to essentially pick up gigs and pick up many jobs along the way that will help you, that provides you the flexible hours, but also add help you supplement whatever income you have coming in already, right? um, Additionally, there something that I think most people don't realize is monetizing your existing skills. Maybe you're a great cook, right? Maybe you're good at doing hair. Maybe you've learned a little bit about, you learned a little coding along the way. You can teach people that may not know as much about coding as you do about coding. There are platforms, whether it's Upwork, Fiverr, or any of these other platforms um, that allow you to essentially uh, create create a service, provide it to other people, and earn money, right? And you can list yourself on some of these platforms for hire, and they will go ahead and hire you to um, teach them how to draw, teach them how to understand a new skill that they're trying to work through, right? So you can convert whatever skills that you may have um, to something that can be monetized and that can actually add to your bottom line. Um, there are ways for you to upskill and up level your skill set using free online courses. So you may or may not be familiar with OpenCourseWare. OpenCourseWare is this program whereby colleges and universities across the U.S. offer some of their classes for absolutely free. So, for example, you can take MIT courses. There are some MIT has OpenCourseWare. If you Google OpenCourseWare, you'll find some of the schools that actually offer OpenCourseWare and the free classes that you can take. And when I say you can take, it's literally you have the syllabus and you have the information you need to go through the course on your own, right? With the obviously the guide by the instructors, but it's oftentimes it's pre-recorded. But you can go through it and actually increase your skill level in a particular topic area. For example, um, I know for a fact that right now Harvard has an SQL, believe it or not, class that you can take. They have courses on nonprofit financial accounting. They have classes on programming and Python or AI and Python. And they just have all these free classes that you can take at your convenience, or they're all on demand at your convenience. You can take and you can actually use that to supplement your skill set and even possibly get into a different field than you already are in, right? So don't overlook some of these open and free classes, online classes, as a way for you to up level your skill set. There are also other programs if you want something that's a bit more in line with your particular career. There are programs where you can actually get digital course certificates, right? So Google has it, Google IT support has it, Meta has some, the Coursera, if you're familiar with Coursera, the online platform, they all have provide the opportunity for you to essentially get a digital certificate for completing a series of classes or a series of sessions, and there can be a great way for you to up level your skill set. Now, don't overlook some of the community programs, the community college programs. They're a great way for you to fast track your programs. You don't always have to go to 4 year. You don't have to always have to go to even like the 2 year. There are some programs, especially in the trades, that you get that are only for a few months that allow you to come out on the other side with a certificate or with a degree that allow you to actually participate. For example, HVAC, medical billing, right? Digital marketing. You can look for workforce grants that will help you pay for these sessions. But at the end of these sessions, at the end of these programs, you would come out with a whole new skill set that you may or may not have had before or had before. So don't overlook community colleges as the first place to as a initial place to look for additional way to up level your skill set, right? Um, if Another way to boost your income is to actually rent out what we call idle assets. And what does that mean? If you have a house, maybe you live in a house and there are multiple rooms, you can rent out one of the rooms, right? You can rent out one of the rooms to other people, right? You can rent your car. Believe it or not, you can rent your car out. You can. I remember years ago there were companies that allow you can place advertisements on your car, right? And they'll pay you to advertise their company on your car. So there are more than one way. There are more than a few ways for you to add to your bottom line. You don't always have to think, oh, I need to go apply for this job and then wait for them to get back to me. Be creative, as Christina said, hustle. Hustling will allow you the opportunity to kind of think outside the box when it comes to how you can up level your skill set and most importantly add to your bottom line, right? And there's lots of different programs out there that you can use to up level your skill set. Pursuing the certifications, particularly if your current job pays for them, can be a great way for you to increase your skill set, right? And there are all of these things that I've mentioned. They are they are either free or low cost ways for you to move essentially to the next level of your career. And even if it's not the next level of your career, for you to think outside the box when it comes to how to boost your income and up level your skill set. So if whatever your skill set is, maybe you're good at math, maybe you're good at Spanish, maybe you're good at whatever, maybe you're good at science. You can tutor people, right? Maybe you're good at drawing. You can teach people how to draw. Maybe you're good at cooking. You know what? You can teach people some of your amazing recipes and how to create amazing experiences for other people when it comes to meals. So there are lots of ways for you to boost your income and up level your skill set. It's just a matter of thinking outside the box. We know that unfortunately, in a down economy or when things aren't going so well with the economy, it's can be very easy for us to kind of take it all in and feel bad about not only ourselves but feel bad about everything that's happening. But we do believe wholeheartedly that there's a ways for you to come out ahead and come out on the other side and use this time to increase and boost your skill set. All right. So today we want to thank you for joining us here at Total Alignment Charitable. Before we go, I'm going to turn it over to Christina to see if she wants to add anything before I tell you a little bit about our free programming that we have here at Total Alignment Charitable.
Well, we thank you guys for joining, and as always, I sign off with please follow us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And guess what our handles are? Total Alignment Charitable. So easy. So you can go on and follow us. It's the name of the organization, Total Alignment Charitable, where you can find more information and stay up to date with different webinars and programming that we have coming out. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we are also on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe, hit the subscribe button and follow us. And so that you'll be kept abreast of all our upcoming program. We do provide a lot of free programming. One of our missions is to make the inaccessible accessible. And one of the ways we do that is by providing free financial plans. You work with a volunteer financial planner, qualified volunteer financial planner, to work with you one-on-one to help you create a financial plan, a budgeting plan, or a risk plan that will help you manage your finances. So if you are interested, please visit us at www.totalalignmentcharitable.org and click on the Get a Plan button. Once you do that, you're going to be taken to a page that'll ask you a series of questions about yourself. It won't take you long. And then we'll see if you qualify for the free financial plan. But if you are an organization that's looking to provide some type of personal finance programming, please reach out to us. We'd love to partner with you and provide free personal finance workshops to individuals that you serve. Our goal here is to partner and serve as many people as possible. So we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you around soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers.